you want to send 1 million drones there, nothing will happen until a person enters.
The Ukrainian armed forces will soon be in Crimea and so on.
Our units entered Crimea. It will be a difficult period. Midrib, Kob, June.
It will not end.
It will end. I will propose to you to accept one rule and you will accept it. Do you know who I am? You don't tell anyone.
How many attempts were made on your life?
There are options that I am a hologram. I think we are still from China.
Have you thought about politics?
I never play these games. Ukraine will not lose and Ukraine will not be destroyed. This must be understood. As always, we come up with something at the last minute.
I'd like to start with a bit of news. Ukrainian forces destroyed a Russian strategic bomber today. How did they do it? Tell us.
You are referring to the destruction of the Russian Federation's Tu-23M3 long-range aircraft. We waited and prepared for a long time. In the end, we did it. What can I say to that?
Did it? With what? Can you give us some details?
I wouldn't want to disclose all this, to be honest. I can only say that the plane was hit at a distance of 308 kilometers. That's far enough. Let's just say it's been a fruitful and long work. Is making itself felt. This is the same method, as they say, and the same means that we used when we destroyed the A-50 plane in the air.
According to Ukrainian intelligence, how many of these planes do all Russians have?
There are more, but this is the first downing of a long-range aircraft in this war. And it is quite understandable that it will be a little easier for Desi now, because the Tu-23M3 aircraft use Kh-22 missiles, which probably caused the most destruction in the city, because the missile is very fast, powerful, and no one could intercept it. This is still a Soviet development. And at the same time, the accuracy is not so great, and the number is greater. Let's say civilian buildings have lowered the prices themselves. Missiles. Now, quite obviously, will be looking for new frontiers, and in the direction of Odessa, there are, in principle, no other frontiers. Only ground-based systems will be used for strikes on Odessa and missiles from long-range aircraft and from the sea. I hope they will not see Harpuzin again.
Did you prepare this operation for a long time?
The week was, let's say, a self-imposed detention. We were waiting for him to reach the right milestone.
Let's move on to global questions about the war. In the West, more and more people are now saying that Ukraine may lose this war this year. Of the year, the counteroffensive did not produce the expected results. Weapons, the supply of weapons has slowed down and so on. How do you react to such forecasts and such pessimistic sentiments?
How exactly am I on the CIA? Okay. You don't.
Do such pessimistic sentiments make sense at all? Listen,
if we are talking about scenarios that are being developed, which maybe in any case there are, let's put it this way, positive for one of the parties, not negative for the other scenarios. There is no reason, let's say, to believe in Ukraine's strategic loss. Yes, if we say that everything will go badly, it is quite clear that the result is bad. However, if things change for the better, and there are reasons to believe that, so be it, they are all there is.
What is the basis for this opinion?
Let's take this morning, for example, and see where you started. Will this have a positive impact on the situation? At least for one particular region, I would say yes, positively. Yes, there are problems at the front, but we must also be honest. These problems did not appear today, and not a month ago, and not even 3 months ago. This is a systemic problem that we bumped into each other, and at the same time we must remember that Ukraine is all that exists.
If the Russian offensive, I watched your interview in the winter, you said that there are no significant successes at the moment, in your opinion. Have the Russians made any significant progress?
Even this Russian had a real success in Avdiivka, and we have to admit it. This is a fact. They did it. Everything else, well, pokie about the whole thing.
What about the recent attacks on the energy sector and so on? These are the strikes.
This is a blow to the energy sector.
But
listen, you can take it here, but ours, let's say, positive practical strikes on their facilities. It's all an equalization. You see, they are doing something somewhere, and we are making our move somewhere. Some are more successful, others less so. The issue of war is not resolved by strikes, just like in ancient times. Until a person with a flag enters the territory, nothing will change. You can send 1 million drones there, you can put 100,000 artillery shells in there, but unless a person enters, nothing will happen.
representatives of the Ukrainian government, by the way, last year you said that the Russians were running out of missiles. Are there any strikes, successful strikes on the energy sector? I will tell you.
I don't have to go on. Look, there hasn't been a single attack on the energy sector for more than a year. But it is quite clear that if there is production, they've been hoarding. They have especially accumulated a naval component of missiles and tactical missile weapons, but so far it has not been actively used. And the missiles of the aviation component, they have once again very seriously depleted their reserves. Even the last blow we take today, only 2 strategic bombers were launching strikes. This is not because they have no goals, but because they save a little. Yes, they can deliver some more serious blows, but not indefinitely.
Who helps them with this?
Who helps them? No one helps. They work on their own. They are quite effective. Overcome sanctions, sanction circumvention, and so on.
Western components reach them.
Well, they are still going on.
What is China's involvement? Is it in the... This is what helps the Russians in a slaughterhouse.
China has not transferred any ready-made weapons, and as far as we know, does not plan to transfer any. Components, microchips, and now machines have been delivered. But all of these are at best dual-use goods. We also need this to understand, just like you said yourself. European, Western, as they say, chips, mechanisms, units. Unfortunately, that's all there is to it.
You are known for your forecasts, positive forecasts, you know what I'm talking about. Now the Ukrainian armed forces will soon be in Crimea and so on. You won't regret
I said that we would enter Crimea.
About these positive forecasts?
Never. I never regret the past. Anything at all. The fact that sometimes the situation changes dramatically, radically. After all, if you're talking about my personal words, then our units entered Crimea.
Do not think that such forecasts give you false hope.
They give me vain hope. These are real-time forecasts. If something turns out a little differently, sorry, this makes a difference.
In your interviews, you often say that your forecasts are based on classified information,
Facts,
right?
figures,
All
documents,
answers
etc.
are in numbers. I'm quoting you. What do these numbers tell you today about the
We have a
front?
pretty tough one coming up. In our estimation, the situation will be difficult in the near future, but it is not catastrophic. This should also be understood. Oh, Tarmageddon is not going to happen, as many people are now starting to say. No, but the problems are from within. May will be.
Same to you on the front.
I'm talking about
On the
the
Russian
front
offensive?
too. This is a comprehensive approach because the Russians will utilize an integrated approach. They conduct a comprehensive operation. We will not talk about this for a long time, but it will be a difficult period. Middle of the grass, Kobo, June.
It is also about the internal
Move
socio-political
about everything.
situation. In an interview with us, former Chief Viktor Muzhenko said that over the 2 years of war, the Russians have changed. They have better equipment. They are better prepared and so on. How do you assess how the Russians have changed since the start of the full-scale tournament, and what are they like today? Have they become stronger?
Yes and no. We must remember that war is always a frantic development. In any country in the world, war has always brought about development, technological, industrial, and so on, despite the fact that it is a huge expense and destruction, but it is always development. Everything happens to them, it happens to us. We also need to understand this. At the beginning of the 22nd year, who could have predicted that tens of thousands of drones would be processed at the front? It was unimaginable. However, this is no longer a surprise to anyone. As for the equipment, to a certain extent, the equipment of the infantrymen has definitely become better. The quality of the equipment is not, it has fallen, because there is not enough new equipment. It is not enough. This is all repaired, restored equipment from long-term weapons storage facilities. There's no point in talking about quality there, and there's no need for it. Quality, in terms of the quality of personnel, those who participated in the first, as they say, wave of the full-scale invasion of the 22nd year, they were real professionals, contractors with normal combat experience and so on, but since then they have almost disappeared. Russia is fighting a mobilized war.
What is their morale?
No principle. It intensified after the capture of Avdiivka, but it was a temporary phenomenon. But in principle, there is no point in being mobilized. They are fighting for money, because they were drafted, because they were forced to be drafted, and so on. In other words, go ahead. The Russian mentality also plays an important role. Go forward, as they say. A Russian man, he's leaving. He doesn't really think about what will happen to him there. But to say that he is trying hard is also not true.
How strong is Russian intelligence here in Ukraine, according to your data? It's clear that they exist, right, as far as they're concerned?
What do you mean they are? They get the data they need and try to influence them. It is. This is true. It is a fact.
Progress, or vice versa. Change.
INA is a development, I told you. And it's the same here. Let's just say everything related to cyber development, electronic development, they are amplified.
A difficult situation. With the war, right? And you yourself say it won't be easy.
I say it will be a difficult situation, but it is not Nermagedon. This is not a critical situation.
Is there any point in this difficult situation do you think we should start negotiations?
It's absolutely not up to me. So I'm sorry, and I don't see how I can answer it.
Do you have any advice for the president on this matter?
Of meaning? No, absolutely not. Negotiations about what? Negotiations on what terms? Negotiations on what topics? This is a broad question.
You have stated that this war can be ended by returning the borders of the 91st year.
Yes, and nothing has changed.
We talked to the military and they say that this will not actually be the end of the war. A huge border is halfway to be maintained, Russia is not going anywhere, and so on.
So what?
In other words,
to
this
continue
war
this
will
thought,
not actually end, there is a new one.
It will end. It will end there. The fact that we will have a certain period of time, perhaps a long one, but the tense situation on the borders after this will happen, but in fact the war will end.
Even under the same military and political leadership in...
Even so, the fact that there will be attempts to do something again is normal. This is normal. It's perfectly normal. Russia wants to destroy us. We don't want to be destroyed. We don't have the same whims as they say, you know. That's why this conflict will constantly reappear, subside, reappear, and so on. Look at our history. We are with the Russian Federation, the Russian Empire, the Moscow Kingdom, and so on. Whole life, we put up with it, then we fight. We will not be able to change the course of history in the future. You have to realize that.
In every interview with Russia, you are asked about a possible second offensive on Kiev, and in every interview you answer that there is no such threat.
It is groundless.
Today, the situation has not changed.
It hasn't changed at all.
There is no threat.
Stan on Zaraz, absolutely.
Speaking of the attack on Kiev, I would like to ask you this question. The CIA director said that he came on the eve of Russia's invasion of Kyiv and passed on information about Russian plans, including the landing in Gostomel of the Russian landing force. I understand that you also had this information. I read materials where about it was right. You had this information and passed it on to Bankova Street. What was the reaction there? Because Burns, for example, says that Zelensky considered this information to be unproven, he did not believe that Putin was that crazy.
I have great respect for Mr. Burns. I know him personally. In fact, I am proud of this acquaintance. Mine. And I think it would not be correct to publicly comment on his statements, just as I think he would not have agreed to do the same if you had asked him about me. He expressed his position. You can accept it or not. It's yours personally.
Ukrainian intelligence had this information.
Obviously.
Also about the Russians' plans and the landing in Gostomel.
Listen to this. As I am reminded there, different old stories. There are stories that cannot be exhausted. Okay, for example, it seems that in October they were the first to speak out publicly, and no one was afraid to take on this responsibility. That yes, the situation is threatening, we plan to do this, that, and the other. For you to pick up, there was a diagram like this. Which arrows were on, how, where, what should go. Just check it out. What eventually happened.
You have this information. We sent it to the president. What was the response?
I'm not going to talk about this now.
A question about last year's counteroffensive. In your opinion, what was the main counteroffensive of last summer that did not yield the expected results? In your opinion, what is the reason for? This is poor planning. The weapons were coming in slowly.
Let's do it anyway. I will propose to you to accept one rule, and you will accept it. It will not be otherwise. Would you mind powering me up, please? What is directly related to my competence and responsibility? It is at least incorrect to evaluate the actions of other officials.
In general, the very fact that Ukraine is coordinating these plans with its Western partners, do you think is this normal? Because some people, such as the military and experts, criticize it. Ukraine has to plan it all by itself.
Again, I do not coordinate my plans. I can tell you right away. I have a question which concern, let's say, many parties, then I don't see anything wrong with to warn in advance, perhaps even to stipulate with other parties what the consequences will be for everyone. This is what we are all about. So does what consultations from other agencies? I do not know for sure. Well, I don't want to be interested in it.
The GRU carries out many operations in Russia, successful operations. And the Western press has repeatedly written that American intelligence does not like this very much. Did they express any criticism at all in their conversation with you?
I'm telling you, when certain actions directly affect many countries, not because it is interesting to anyone, but because it will have an impact, I don't see anything wrong with to have a normal conversation with our partners. Because if we call them partners, we must not forget about them, because a one-sided partnership is parasitism. This is my answer to you.
One of the most successful operations was when a Russian helicopter pilot defected to the Ukrainian side. He was killed in Spain. What conclusions have you drawn from this? Did they protect us?
I would give you an obscene answer as to what conclusions we have drawn, but it's unfortunate, but it's classic, is a psychological mistake of people. When people relax, they have money, they allegedly look out for their safety, but at the same time, desire for fame clouds everyone's eyes, and they start to tell everyone, do you know who I am? To tell them, you are not known to anyone, only you. I see. Well, then they also start calling girls from the Russian Federation, people they know from the past, to tell them how much money they have now, how wonderful they live in Spain, and so on. I'm not saying anything. We should have prevented this somehow, but unfortunately this is not an isolated incident. This behavior of people in the world at different times and in different situations, this is a common mistake, and unfortunately it has befallen us as well. We also need to recognize this. I have never been afraid to admit mistakes. I can say the same thing here. I should have looked after him. Instead of believing that I am an adult, I know what to do.
In one of your speeches, you mentioned Operation Maiden 3. Yes.
Okay.
Is it still relevant? Are the Russians still infiltrating?
It continues and advances, and unfortunately,
Which is
it's moving forward.
by rank?
This is a question that already concerns state secrets, I'm sorry. I cannot say more than what has been said. But I'm telling you again, the Russians are working on it.
Are there any pro-Russian forces activating here in Ukraine?
They clearly understand that purely pro-Russian forces will not be able to function now. So they are camouflaging it under various activities. I would say different issues, social tensions. And this will not look, and their plans clearly describe this, it should not look like some kind of pro-Russian position. No, absolutely not.
There is a lot of talk about the competition between the GUR and SBU operations, especially in Russia. Is it there? Does it interfere on the territory of Russia?
It's great if it is, listen to it.
Does it hinder or help?
Healthy competition has always helped everyone. Absolutely everyone. You know, a long time ago I was told a story. American automakers are facing the problem of, let's say, aggressive market expansion by Japanese automakers. So they got ready, as they say, and left ask that, or quotas, or raising taxes to somehow protect the automotive market. What was the answer? Just make better cars. And that's it. They didn't get the quota, and they started making cheaper and better cars. That's why I believe that competition is the rule.
There is a feeling that the process of prisoner exchange has slowed down recently. Is this true or not? And are there any obstacles?
Isn't it already? But it has slowed down, you think? Because of Maiden 3 and everything else, including, let's say, the rest.
Not through those.
Russia is using all the possible factors for creating social tension, and it will continue to do so. At the same time, has slowed down, but it hasn't stopped, and we are still trying to get out of here in different ways. We are trying to get results, and in this matter it is the same. But it is difficult, and Russia will use this factor to influence our society.
That the reason for this is not the return of the Azov army commanders, because there is a version that...
Look, after they were returned, there was a certain period of time, but after that, exchanges have resumed. That can definitely no longer be considered a cause.
If possible?
In winter it was... In fact, there were 4 exchanges. 10 large-scale ones, more than 100 in each. You have to remember that.
If you can give us a figure, how many Ukrainians are currently being held captive?
No.
You can't?
Can't.
To name, there was information about that you were considered for the post of defense minister after Povoroznikov. Is this true or not? Were you offered the job or not? It's interesting because they actually wrote a lot.
I've already told you. Let's ask me what I'm responsible for. Who was looking at whom? Питання rhetoric. I'm telling you, this is a rhetorical question. I'm very polarizing in my logic, so you can continue your thought. If they did, why didn't they appoint you?
I wanted to too.
I will not have a serious conversation with you.
Did they offer or not?
For me personally, let's just say that I know that such thoughts existed, but judging by the fact that we are talking to you now, I'm sitting in front of you, it obviously didn't happen, right? Well, you are the answer.
What is Kirill Budanov afraid of?
What should I be afraid of? Do you think I have anything to be afraid of? As a
Captivity?
believer, I am afraid, let's just say, God to be one.
Are you not afraid?
I'm not even considering it.
I read the Washington Post recently. They call you reckless, including in the context of planning operations. Also a person who enjoys danger.
Well, it's just the opinion of some people. Maybe they are right about something, maybe not. I usually use another old rule. Winners are not judged.
How many attempts were made on your life? Does this figure you mentioned still remain around 10?
Let's leave it at that. They're planning something there now, but like in the past, everything is us. No, you won't.
Are they Russians?
It is in the interest of the Russians, it is true. These are Russians in the interest of Russians. They plan to involve people here as well. Well, this is normal operational work for them.
There was a story about your wife being poisoned. Could you elaborate on it, as I know that an investigation is underway? What news do you have to tell us about at the moment? Who, what, how?
There will be answers, don't worry.
We have not detained anyone yet.
Well, believe me, what detentions, it's not serious. I never play these games. Allah is my squad tomb. It's not going to work that way.
Ale, there is a movement, an investigation.
Everything is there.
Is progressing.
It is progressing.
And how is her condition in general?
But more or less normal. We stabilized him, removed most of the toxins.
Yes, and who was the target?
Well, if she was poisoned, who was the target?
There were thoughts that you were actually wearing it.
To make a mistake.
Attempted assassination.
You know, yes. I don't even know of any cases where this has happened. No, their logic is clear. A wife for me, that's it. And its influence, they made the right assessment. As you can see, God is with us and nothing will happen.
How did you get on with the new chairman? Has everything been settled?
I don't see any problems.
Are the bets going well?
Productive.
Have you studied the latest ratings? You are included in them, you know that. You have a February trust rating for the second month after you took office.
This may surprise you. I hear about such things from time to time, but I'm not particularly interested.
Is people's trust in you growing?
I am pleased to hear that.
Aren't you afraid that this will make someone jealous?
Why should I be afraid of anything? First of all, I've already told you I'm not afraid of much in life. And secondly, I'm not interested. It's just not interesting. I do not live in sociology, so to speak. I studied it for, I think, 1 year at the military institute. That was the end of my connection to this science, as they say.
How do you see yourself in the future? Is Kirill Budanov already leaving development?
Well, when I leave, I will be there to think. I like it here.
What is your reason for joining Ostro Academy?
Training. Something is strange here. I'm constantly trying to practice self-study, so to speak, raising the level of education. This is not the only education. Why? I recently graduated from Kiev Mohila courses of the Academy, Strategic Architect. Whenever possible, I am always involved in education.
Have you thought about politics?
Well, it's definitely too early. It's not the right time. There is a war going on.
How do you relax in general? So stressed, the robot.
No. This is a big problem. I realize this, but I can't help it.
You recently said that Telegram is a problem for Ukraine.
I can repeat this to you again. This is a huge problem.
And what to do about it?
Abo, as they say, to organize it all. To put things in order. At least force it by law. Everyone to register so that it is clear. The one that media resource, and Telegram is definitely one status. Media was not, is standing. If there is no question of influence or pressure, this is not the issue. If you want to prove your position, some people may not like it, which is normal in a democratic society, but you have to be responsible. Why are you afraid to say who you are?
You're talking about anonymous Telegram channels?
So they are all anonymous. Do you know of a single Telegram channel that has said directly that I am me? This is the answer.
Can their closure be a solution to this problem? Blocking and so on.
Well, temporarily, yes, but I still think that we should sell the registration. There will be no pressure on the press. And in a democratic society, I can tell you, you can't just put pressure on. Why am I even telling you this? You are, as they say, representatives of journalism. I mean, you would be very happy if someone came to you and said, that's it, from now on you write like this. Of course, it was not normal. But being afraid to say that you are you is also wrong. And on behalf of Anonymous to broadcast, everything that will be paid for from completely different parts of the world, even so, let's say, this is also not normal.
Do you read telegrams yourself?
Telegram? No. I look at Telegram sometimes. I have one on Telegram apparatus. Let's just say that it's on the job. And I look through it when certain events take place to see, for the most part, how Russian society perceives certain events. This is the only thing I use from Telegram.
And you probably read from time to time the news on Russian Telegram channels about your murder. How do you react to this?
No, they told me yesterday that they had recently thrown me out, that I was killed somewhere near Kharkiv. Yeah. How can I respond to this? Well, I don't know. You're laughing. When people say that someone is dead, that person will live a long time. So it will be the same with me.
Will live a long time?
Well, they killed me the day before yesterday, as they say again. Well, I am sitting in front of you right now. I think we're going to rule out the possibility that I'm a hologram.
Can the scouts have a telegram at all or nothing at all?
No, absolutely not.
It's off limits.
Yes, it is. As a manager, I simply have access to all the world's media and resources, as they say. That's why I look through to see the results of our operations, or resonant events that, in our opinion, are important, have or will have any impact.
In May, President Zelensky will have completed 5 years in office. How do you feel about working under this supreme leader?
It works fine. I'm not complaining, as they say.
Can Zelensky lead Ukraine to victory?
Well, he's already hers. Has been running for, let's say, 2.5 years. When? How? And you have said this expression more than once. Western experts, domestic experts, as they say, said that everything is over now. But as you can see, again, we are sitting across from each other talking, and he is the president.
He recently said that he called on the West to protect Ukraine in the same way that Israel was protected.
New word.
But the West, as you have heard, says that it does not want to enter into a direct confrontation with Russia.
We need to understand all these aspects and take them into account. In addition, the State of Israel is the main, officially recognized as the main ally of the United States of America. Unfortunately, we cannot boast of this yet. We can. Would I want to do that? I would. Who is against helping us defend ourselves? Someone else. I don't think you know anyone who would be against it.
The main argument, as far as we understand, is not to further anger Russia, not to provoke it, and so on.
Whose argument is this?
Often it is Western politicians and experts who
Ask them about it one day.
say something. You know, it's Kirill Budanov, the one who makes positive predictions. Say something about this year, after all. Which are your expectations, forecasts, what to expect? Ukrainians?
Listen, I've already told you. It's the next period. In our opinion, I'm not saying it's the only one, but we think it will be a difficult period. But severe and catastrophic are different things. We have already gone through difficult periods several times, and we will go through this, believe me. Nothing extraordinary will pass. We know all the plans in advance, how to respond to them. There is an answer to most of them. Yes, there are certain issues that will be difficult for us to crack, but we will find the answer. As always, we will come up with something at the last minute.
But a lot depends on other points, in particular from Western weapons, from Western partners, and so on.
This world in general, let's say, the world of the 21st century, is the world of even intercontinental ties. Listen, everything in this world is connected. The entire economy is connected. All politics is also connected. Therefore, many things influence certain events. But at the same time, I'm honest with you, no matter what anyone says, please recall the very same, as I say, strange experts who told Ukraine that 3 days would be the end of the matter.
How do you compare this situation? Is Ukraine losing this year to these days?
Yes, in the same way, Ukraine will not lose and Ukraine will not be destroyed. This must be understood.